on ResearchHub, you can earn research coin through comments, through having your content upvoted, having people tip you when they think your work is good. So it helps kind of level the playing field for people in getting financially compensated for their expertise. Because yes, reputation is important in academia, but also like if you go to the grocery store and you say, hey, this is my reputation, can I have some food? They're going to say, yeah, cool. We only accept currency, like fiat currency, for the physical goods that we have.
So hello and welcome to the Sheekey Science Show, where in this video I spoke with Cole Delyea, a fellow YouTuber of Investigate, Explore, Discover, with a background in immunology. However, here we discuss Cole's involvement with ResearchHub, a platform that is changing the way in which scientific research can be accessed and funded, as you will shortly find out. So hi Cole, good to see you and welcome to the Sheekey Science Show.
Hi Eleanor, thank you for having me on.
No problem. Well, I wanted to reach out to you because I noticed your recent interest in ResearchHub and how you've been using it to do your own independent research, which is kind of interesting because I feel like one of the first conversations we had about a year ago now was all about ResearchHub. And I think, if anything, I maybe was the first person to tell you about it. And so, yeah, my initial understanding of ResearchHub was it was kind of like an alternative platform to upload research papers and discuss it, kind of like a Twitter for research papers. But since then, I feel like there's all sorts of new features that have been added. So I guess firstly, yeah, would you be able to elaborate a bit more about what ResearchHub is to you?
Sure. So, I mean, ResearchHub as it is a platform with a goal to accelerate the pace of science. It does this through peer review, scientific discourse. There is now a reference manager to help people organize their research and writing papers. And recently they've started doing funding of projects through submission of pre-registrations, which are basically like study plans for research projects. Yeah, I mean, ResearchHub, super exciting. It's grown a lot since we first talked about it and grown exponentially, I think, over the last month.
Wow, nice.
So very exciting to talk with people specifically about science and see new developments.
Nice, because when we first met, I think you said that your background was in immunology, and so was that how you initially were interacting with papers? Because I know now, as we'll go on to, you're doing research around plant biology, and I was just curious to find out how using ResearchHub has maybe influenced the sort of topics that you've been reading about.
Yeah, so my background is in immunology. The highest degree I hold is a master's. At that point, I decided time to get out of academia and move on. I've always had an interest in plant biology. That just wasn't what I did in school. So the project that that got funded through ResearchHub is working on really a personal aspect, or it's really just interesting to me personally. And I'm doing this in conjunction with my fiance. So we're both working on we're both looking at how music can influence plant growth. So I'll just dive a bit into the project. What it is it's a hydroponic growth, or a hydroponic setup for growing lettuce in basically a soundproof box, which you can see behind me.
Nice.
That's where it's being performed. There are 16 different variables that we're looking to control. So it's kind of a broad study, but this area of research isn't very well developed. Like it's been out there, I think, really notably, I think since the 70s, but there's been research on it going back to, I think, as early as the 50s. So there just hasn't been a lot studied on this, and there's been basically no information on how music affects hydroponic systems, which I think are a better growing method if you're looking at commercial growth, because plants typically grow faster. They can be grown in less area. They use, I don't know about the nutrients, but it's just easier and faster to grow.
I see. So how are you using ResearchHub then to sort of do this research project?
With ResearchHub, I first submitted a proposal in the form of a pre-registration. On the platform, I interacted with many people from the community and got tons of constructive feedback on as to how to best formulate the questions and tweak the setup. Once I had submitted another document with those revisions, the community came together to help fund this. The whole project, I think my costs were, including all the materials and my time, about $1,600. And so this research project got funded in under 2 hours from the community.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And so it got funded for $2,000, at which point I converted, and it got funded through ResearchCoin, which is ResearchHub's native crypto token. So I took that ResearchCoin, I immediately converted it into Ethereum, which then I converted into US dollars and moved to my bank to compensate or to reimburse, because I had already bought the materials, me for the materials.
I see. So, yeah, perhaps we should probably expand a little bit on the ResearchCoin. So how is the funding achieved on the platform? So the funding that eventually went to the ResearchCoin that you received, where did that originally come from?
It was from multiple different community members. So it's really a proof of concept that ResearchHub can be a platform for helping fund people's science. So people can come together for funding things that they think are interesting to accelerate the pace of science. Because if I were to look at traditional funding methods, I don't think I would be able to have funded this project, because this is in a new field of study. I mean, I have done a bunch of research looking up how to do this, the background on it, and I'm in the process of writing a review for that. But it gives scientists, I think, really the opportunity to look into interesting questions that they might have always had in the back of their mind or just recently came up with, and provides community support to actually do that.
I see. And so at the moment, was this the first project that actually received funding successfully, or has there been multiple attempts to do this?
This is the first project that ResearchHub has successfully funded.
I see, because I was just wondering, I mean, do you think there are certain projects that are more likely to get funded than others, or how is it purely based on people being interested in a certain project that therefore it will receive funding? Or is there any sort of additional regulation over how people might choose to fund projects?
At this point in time, I think it is, number one, how feasible your experiment is. So with the pre-registration, including all of the relevant details to how you're going to do it, what variables you're looking at, how you're going to control it. If you know what the background is, so that way you can postulate informed questions. In terms of topics, right now, I don't think there is any limit on the types of research that could be funded. It's really what's feasible and what people think are interesting.
I see. And so do you have any idea the sort of demographics of people that are using the platform at the moment, or any idea? I mean, the people who have donated ResearchCoin that you could then use to fund the project, are they then able to, track and see your progress over time?
Yes, so I've been providing updates on this experiment. So every 2 days, I take measurements of the plants and upload them to ResearchHub for people to look at. So the experiment, because it's being done in real time, there's also the opportunity to look at how it's progressing.
How is it progressing? I mean, I'm kind of curious myself.
It's interesting. I mean, right now I'm starting with a no sound control. I found yesterday when doing the maintenance on it that the pump had been unplugged. So I think that kind of unfortunately invalidates this as a proper control, because water needs aeration, or yeah, the water that plants take up needs aeration to help grow effectively. And if there was a period of time where the water was not being aerated, that can stunt plant growth. So for having that period of time, I don't think it's a suitable control. And if you have a control, you need it as exact as the other treatments are going to be. I could modify it to do that in all of them, but it also feels disingenuous to do that and wouldn't properly capture what the experiment is supposed to be. So I can, as with all science, there are always hiccups in experiments.
Yeah, I can relate.
And this, I think, is just one of them. It happens. You just take it, you learn from it, and move forward. But the plants themselves are growing actually really fantastically. What is it? If I look through some of my notes, pretty much every 2 days since the lettuce has been pruned, the length and width, the length of the radicals has been going up by about 1 centimeter every 2 days. And the width has been, I would say, about 0.5 centimeter.
Nice.
So really interesting. It's only 14 days in. I think it will still provide interesting insight on just how fast we can expect lettuce to grow. Because I know many people grow lettuce hydroponically in these aero gardens just out of interest. They grow herbs. You can grow tomatoes, like whatever. I've got a bunch of them in my house already. But I don't think that it's been documented in this way.
I see. No, actually, I mean, because what is the main, like, depending on your findings, how are you hoping maybe in the future to apply some of this research that you're doing?
So if there is a specific music treatment that increases the growth of lettuce over the control, I think that provides justification for farmers that are doing indoor vertical hydroponic gardening to also apply the sound treatment to increase yield, to just increase likely profits. I can't say for certain, but it would be a boon to this industry to also treat these plants in this way. Because if you can have better yield, you can feed more people, you can sell more, so you can possibly increase your profits.
And these hydroponic systems, they can pretty much be installed in many places, right? That's the other advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't require a lot of space. I mean, this cabinet behind me is, I don't know, like 3 to 4 feet high, about the same wide, and I think 2 feet deep. So that's with space around it. I have a vertical tower garden. It has a 2-foot footprint, and I think it is almost 6 feet tall, and it holds like 25 to 30 plants. So like the space requirement for hydroponic gardening is actually very small, and you can produce a good yield. Like the one that I have in my apartment, I use for salads. I've got cherry tomatoes growing on there. I've got jalapenos. Like I've got a variety of plants that I just use to supplement what I'm eating anyway.
Oh, nice. And so do you have any like hypotheses for what type of music might actually influence the growth of these lettuces?
So from previous research, it's been noted that classical music is supposed to increase plant growth over no sound control. I think that will likely hold, but I'm also interested to see, I've got different groups. So I've got like nature sounds, multiple different forms of classical music. I've got different chants like Vedic, Buddhist, and a mix. I've got Christian music. rock and jazz. So honestly, I don't know which one will cause a better yield. But if any of them cause a better yield, then I think that is a success.
Yeah, and I think it's success in terms of the science, but also success in terms of the proof of principle of like the research hub mechanism working right. As because for you, this is just like a passion project at the moment. It's not your full time job, right?
Yeah, I'm doing this on top of working a full-time job, so this is in the evenings.
And so, with like the Research Hub platform, do you think that it's mainly geared up for things like passion projects, like small projects that may be easier to fund, or do you think maybe long term there is the chance that even current researchers, if they needed extra funding for a specific project and just didn't have the grant or something to cover it, that's also a possibility?
I think it is a possibility. I can't say for certain what will happen in the future, but as if more smaller projects are funded, I think that provides a proof of principle that these that science can be crowdfunded and done effectively. If that can be scaled up to larger projects, I think that would also be beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess the one thing that people would have to know about is if is there a requirement? I mean, I feel like it's by principle, if you get funded through Research Hub, you should post all your findings on the site, right? But I guess there's no necessary requirement for you to do so, or is there?
Um, I think there's an unwritten, like unspoken requirement, like, hey, you should be updating people if you're working in
Yes.
the decentralized science ecosystem. The point is to be transparent. It's to be effective as best you can. Like, you should be sharing these results with people as they come out to help garner excitement and also provide verification and validity to what you're doing.
Exactly. And so, I mean, are you involved in any other DSI projects?
Not at the moment. I've been pretty heavily focused on just ResearchHub.
I see. And so, I mean, if the things progress as it seems to be, would you see maybe you yourself allocating more time on the platform, or for you, do you think it will always just sort of be a sort of part-time interest as opposed to like a full-time career?
If as things progress, I mean, I have to see depending on how my personal situation kind of shakes out. Ideally, I would like to spend more time on the platform and helping as best I can, but nothing's set in stone. Everything kind of shakes out as it will.
I see. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And so if people wanted to also maybe try and get projects funded, what is the best way for them to do that?
I think just be active on ResearchHub, submit thorough, well thought out experimental plans in the form of pre registrations, uh, and just see where it goes from there. Because if these are not, if projects can be crowdfunded, as they evidently can, it'll just be interesting to see where it goes.
Exactly. I mean, were you surprised when you got the funding for your first project, like how short it was?
I was incredibly surprised. I mean, it was a wild time. Like I mentioned before, it was 2 hours for funding. The whole process, in terms of like putting pen to paper and actually writing down what I wanted to do, the whole process maybe took about a month.
Mm.
But there was lots of support on ResearchHub from active users there. Like, the community there is fantastic, very friendly, very helpful.
And obviously, I mean, obviously, when I think about research papers, there's obviously like articles documenting experiments like you're doing, but there's also like review articles where you sort of bring ideas together. Do you think there's also maybe similar chance for like funding to also create sort of review documents that could also be valuable?
Maybe. I don't have a final say on
True.
what happens. I think if people wanted to submit plans, like a detailed plan on how to structure a review and what that would look like. I mean, depending on how people as a whole, like on ResearchHub, how valuable they would find that, they can tip their own research coin to fund that. I don't think that's impossible to do. I think that the progression of those things would be very exciting to see on ResearchHub, like updates on how documents are going. I think ultimately providing or creating micro publications in a way, which could lead up to full publications. That would be super interesting because you can apply a DOI to posts on ResearchHub,
Cool.
and you can get effective peer feedback through the comments, also through inline commenting, so you can highlight certain sections of posts and give specific comments on that piece of highlighted text. Because I know that in review processes through typical journals, they kind of give you like, okay, well, these are our general comments. If the reviewers are good, they'll highlight the lines in their final thing, but there's no interaction with the document.
Yeah.
Where you can do that on ResearchHub, and I think makes the commenting much easier.
Yeah, no, I think it's incredible, obviously applying the technology side of things, but also the speed of which things can happen, which is just amazing. And I think the key thing that you've highlighted already is that decentralized science is all about community and it's community driven. And so I guess maybe still one of the limitations with the platform is it takes time for communities to build, right? And so do you think that's the main limitation with how the site is going?
I don't know, to be completely honest. The community around ResearchHub has been growing steadily. Over the past month, it has definitely ballooned, and there's more discourse, more people coming in. So you're getting more insights, and thus, with more people being active on the platform, you have a greater probability of interacting with someone that has a matching expertise to what you're looking for or that you have.
So when I was using ResearchHub, I remember sort of writing peer reviews on the papers, and that was probably my last interaction before I think the system had changed again. Compared to just uploading and maybe commenting a bit about the paper, you would actually give some detail about how you thought the paper was conducted and comment on the research itself.
Yeah, so on ResearchHub, I mean, one of the key aspects of the platform is being able to do peer review on preprints that come out of medRxiv or bioRxiv. So as a user of the platform, if you are an expert in that domain, I think that you can write a peer review if you have sufficient knowledge. I mean, that's kind of an esoteric determination. But if you feel confident that like, hey, I know about this, I can give some feedback, you can do that on ResearchHub. And there are bounties where people can specifically get research coin for doing that. But yeah, like that, I think also would increase the pace of science. If as more people come onto the platform, the authors will be effectively made aware that, hey, there are peer reviews going on of your work. There are people talking about it, and they can take that feedback and improve the papers, ideally, or just see what people are saying about it before those papers get published.
The focus on the preprints is partly due to the fact that a lot of papers still are behind paywall, and so obviously people who don't have access, like I got journal access, can't necessarily access it. I mean, I know there are certain ways, but most people can't access it. So is that why there's like a push more towards these preprints?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people have been doing this research with a lot of times publicly funded money, and these journals will come in not really. I don't see a lot of their value prop other than aggregating this information. They will get peer review for free from people in the academic community. They'll curate this into an issue and then publish it and then say, oh, anybody that wants to learn about this thing that you did with publicly funded money, you're going to have to pay more for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's nonsense. The focus on preprints is the fact that preprints are posted for free, I think under like a general Creative Commons license.
That's right, yeah.
So anybody can see them. And because preprints don't have peer review on them already, which is something, because preprints don't have peer review on them already, that gives an avenue for giving the authors feedback on what they've written. Because the idea is like you could do a peer review of an already published paper, but it's also already been published and gone through peer review. There's definitely comments that can be made on every paper. There's always, science is great, but science will never truly be complete because there's always more to learn. There's always things that you may not have considered, whatever. But the focus on preprints is that they are open access and they are at a stage in their publication life cycle where comments could be valuable. And again, on ResearchHub, like you can get research coin for doing those publications, which then you can take that research coin and go and fund projects that you think are interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the aspect that I always liked about it. And I guess like long term, there is a demand, I think definitely, at least in the younger generations going forward in academic research as well, that we want to find alternative ways to publish without the paywall. And I've had situations where researchers have published on a site that has a paywall and then they can't actually read their own paper. Which obviously they can because they have like the PDF, but I mean, they can't on the website view their own work, which is just ridiculous. But I guess, long term, if you have situations like yours where you can actually upload your own personal data, your research data onto ResearchHub, then in the future, if that's where people are publishing, then there is no paywall to begin with, right? So I guess, long term, that would be the idealistic solution.
Definitely. And it would be a better long-term solution. Also, people getting fairly compensated for their time, because peer reviews can take, depending on the paper, can take a long time. And in the traditional academics institutions, people do peer review for free because, it's kind of something you do, which I think is nonsense. Everybody has a specialty. Everybody's time is valuable, and to be rewarded for that value, I think, is crucial. And exactly. I think ResearchHub helps facilitate that as well.
I mean, out of interest, have you seen any competing, maybe competing's not the right word because it's all for a good cause, but any sort of similar sites that are trying to do the same thing?
I don't know of any sites that are doing something similar. I know bioRxiv on itself has an area to peer review, but I don't think that's highly utilized. There's definitely not a way to be compensated for generating those peer reviews. Do you know of any?
No, I mean, that's why I asked. I feel like I see things that are somewhat similar, but also not the same. So definitely, I think, ResearchHub, to me, at least, feels unique. I think, I'm, classic academic, wants to get involved in DSci, but has yet to, I would love to share my research, but for certain reasons, I'm under, agreement that I can't due to my academic situation. I personally don't know any others. And so hopefully in the future we will see, more push over to these alternative modes of publishing. I know when we first met, I think what I spoke to you most about was how I'm also a big fan of using video as a mode of communication. And I know that at least on ResearchHub, there is the ability to link like YouTube videos. I don't think we could ever say written papers are going to be redundant because they're just useful for reference and having figures and references and everything built in. But being able to condense things in a more visual manner as well could be really useful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people's attention span is very short. Papers are long. They're dense. They require very specific expertise to fully comprehend, or to not necessarily comprehend, but to appreciate what's in them. And I think the communication of that through graphics and video wildly helps with just science in general.
And yeah, final thing that just I'm just curious to ask you anyway. This doesn't have to necessarily be in the recording, but obviously there's been like so much advance in like ChatGPT and all the AI tools. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but like obviously to some extent it's easy to very much generate later of like bad data like using these tools. And has ResearchHub considered that already? Are they trying to like factor that into consideration, that someone could just log in and be like, hey guys, I got this idea and it's all artificially generated nonsense? I guess that's part of the peer review, right? You're meant to be able to spot it.
Yeah, that's part of peer review, is the human aspect of discernment of, hey, is this project just a load of gobbledygook that doesn't really do anything? Is it purely AI generated? Because yes, AI generated work can be very similar to human generated work. There's also telltale signs of when something is AI generated. So for example, on ResearchHub, peer reviews that are AI generated are not accepted. They're not, because you didn't put in the work to help critique the information that's being shown. Like,
yeah,
I think that a fusion of, hey, you can use AI to help you generate meaningful content is definitely something that can be used, but like there needs to be personal touches, especially around like funding information. There's nothing yet, but also like being able to verify that there is someone behind the research proposal is key, because you can't just go, I think, as a community, funding projects without knowing who the person is that's doing it is a folly, and should be carefully considered.
Well, I think as well, yeah, maybe then, because as you mentioned, to do your first proposal, you've been on the site for over a year now, right? So, I mean, you've built up a good reputation. So I guess that there is some sort of, I think there is a reputation scoring system, right, in ResearchHub, that if you consistently are acting good, then, now you've surpassed the threshold to now be able to submit your own proposal. And it's just, about due diligence and that community aspect to it that hopefully will eliminate this from happening.
Yeah, and I mean, reputation, it's mercurial and also important. I mean, the typical scientific economy is reputation, which I think is also nonsense, because there's ways to game that.
I mean, how so?
So you can be an author on, I think there was a case of someone doing like 200, like an obscene amount of research papers in a year. Did they really write them? Are they just consultants? There is self-referencing of papers that you've done, which increases your H index, or is it H score?
Oh, I mean, I should know this. I mean, I want to care about it, but I also don't want to care about whatever my score is.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are ways that you can game it, and that has become a problem in academia, because you have people artificially inflating their scores, being like, yeah, I'm definitely reputable. But if you take a critical look at like how could you have done that? That's definitely an issue. I know on ResearchHub there is reputation based on what you've done on the platform, but there's also works to port in other academic work that you've done to help build up your reputation score. And reputation is something that is always going to have bugs, because there's no determinable metric. I mean, I have proof of identity. I've been posting videos, I've been posting content for years now. So like I have proof that I'm a real person and have the knowledge that I do. But reputation is something that it's important. It's difficult to nail down exactly. And I mean, for trying to evaluate reputation, there's always going to be an ever-changing model that tries to best reflect what that is. Because also, how do you pull in everything that you've done? All of the Twitter posts, all of the blog posts, all of the conferences you've gone to, all the people you've spoken to, all of the presentations you've given, the papers you've written, the videos you've posted. Like already that's close to 10 different factors. Also, how impactful is your research? Like how credible is what you've said? Hard to measure. And so something that I think is a crucial question to academia, but ultimately as a value prop for ResearchHub, where academia, a lot of the currency is reputation, because I think people in academia know they're paid poorly, overworked, underfunded. ResearchHub brings monetary value. Or I should say, don't quote me on this. This is a personal thought. But I think that ResearchHub helps bring monetary value to scientific discussions where there wasn't before. So people can actually get appropriately compensated for their time and expertise. Because on ResearchHub, you can earn research coin through comments, through having your content upvoted, having people tip you when they think your work is good. So it helps kind of level the playing field for people in getting financially compensated for their expertise. Because yes, reputation is important in academia, but also like if you go to the grocery store and you say, hey, this is my reputation, can I have some food? They're going to say, yeah, cool. We only accept currency, like fiat currency, for the physical goods that we have.
Yeah, I like that. Well, first, I'm glad you are a real person, but Sue, I completely agree with the reputation aspect. And I think it's important having platforms like this because it enables people. I mean, I feel privileged. Obviously, I come from a good university, so I come with that expected good reputation, but there are many people who are doing good research who just by their situation don't have that for granted. And so this gives them another way to achieve it. But also, I maybe just think that it's something I feel like personally I'm going to have to navigate throughout my career, where part of me is like, I want to go the academic routes, have my lab, etc., where at the moment the whole system is still built around publishing and academic journals, whereas there's also my own passion projects and ideas I want to test maybe outside of that space, and how I balance the two together, or maybe I can find ways to bridge the gap. I think it's definitely going to be challenging, but I'm willing to sort of work in testing, see how it goes, and be an advocate for these sort of platforms that are also trying to achieve that.
Yeah, I think decentralized science definitely helps bridge that gap, because personally, I finished my master's and I'm like, yeah, academia is great. It's not for me. I don't see a viable future of being here. People do it. Personally, I saw academic lifestyle. I saw professors and PIs struggling to get grants, being constantly stressed out, people just on a publish or perish mindset. And really, I think something that's ingrained in academia, unfortunately, is a scarcity mindset, which really doesn't benefit people. So I saw that and I'm like, don't like that. Not for me. So I went into biotech, and that's what brought me to the States, was to do that. But that also gave me more time to even conceive of and pursue this passion project. So there are ways that people can do science that doesn't have to be in academic institutions, because science is not, in my opinion, science is not something that should be solely done in ivory towers. It's something that people should have access to. And I mean, there is a lot of science that does get done that doesn't get recorded, that people don't know about. There's lots of folk wisdom. There's lots of just knowledge out there that is scientific, but not in what I think people would traditionally consider a scientific format. So trying to bridge that and also help allow people to bridge that is a huge task, but also would be a huge success.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I'm completely for it, and I can only encourage my viewers to also, if they're interested as well, to join the platform, because I think it really does take a community to make these differences. And if everyone's doing it, then we can, by mass action, make better changes for the future.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, I think, also one of the responsibilities that people have who are trained in any aspect, not just science, is a responsibility to improve what was there before.
Yeah,
see
exactly.
things that aren't working and try and provide fixes for them to help the most amount of people.
Yeah, no, well said. Well, I think I can only wish you the best of luck with your research project, and I think I'm now going to have to spend more time on ResearchHub to track the plant growth. So it's actually, yeah, it's a really interesting project, but also I just love the proof of principle that simple projects that maybe aren't too expensive really can just be funded through something like this approach, which I think could really help many people who have interesting ideas but just need a bit of funding to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when people think about science, they think about large hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars worth of funding. Yes, that does fund big labs and universities. Universities also take an overhead cut, which I don't think people necessarily know about. That can be anywhere from 10%. What's the highest you've heard? I've heard, I think, the highest of like 40 to 50,
Oh,
but
wow.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Oh, I hope it's not that high, but
I've I've heard of that high. I've definitely seen 30% of research grants going to overhead at universities. Uh, but the fact remains that if you can feasibly come up with inexpensive experiments, that can also push the pace of science forward. And not having to provide these large publications, which have gotten progressively longer and more elaborate as the years have gone on, would also speed up the pace of science.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm also a big fan of simple, very nicely packaged little papers I can digest. So I really think it's a really good approach, and I can only wish you the best of luck, and hope to hear your progress.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm excited. My research project, I mean, with 16 plant treatments over the course of basically a month each, I've got a year and a half timeline to round out to an easy number. So updates will continue to come as they progress, and it'll just be neat. I think one thing as well to mention about science as a whole, because you and I both have a background in science communication, you with this Sheekey Science Show, me with my YouTube channel, which is Investigate, Explore, Discover. I'll give a shameless plug for anybody that wants to check it out. Doing the science is great. Unfortunately, science does not end with you just throwing it out into the world. You need to communicate your science and help guide people to why it's important and why they should care about it. And I think that's something that a lot of researchers and scientists don't know, don't appreciate, aren't told, because it's a whole other aspect to your research that I just think is so critical, because you can do the best work in the world and do something extremely interesting. But if you're not telling people about it, if people don't understand what you're doing or why you're doing it, I mean, it just becomes more words on a page somewhere.
Exactly. No, that's so well said. And also, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, these smaller projects, like for you, this is a passion project, and that passion is like the most important thing when having it with science, because it doesn't just help with you doing the science in the first place, but also the communication, purely for the fact that you're excited about it. So yeah, no, definitely, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely put the link to ResearchHub down below in the description, and obviously I'll link also to your project so my viewers can track your progress too. And so, yeah, thank you again for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been fantastic to talk, and I look forward to hearing more of your interviews and your science communication.
Thank you.